My brother poured scalding gravy on me at Mom's party. Get out. You have 15 minutes. Parents laughed. I slammed the deed on the table. Fine. 15 minutes, and I'm foreclosing on this house. Get out. My name is Adrienne Cole. I am 31 years old, and I rebuild human hearts for a living. Literally. As a cardiothoracic surgeon in Chicago, I spend my days and often my nights holding the most vital organ of the human body in my gloved hands, stitching together what life, genetics, or bad decisions have torn apart. I am used to blood. I am used to the smell of cauterized flesh. I am used to high-pressure situations where a single millimeter of error means the difference between a family celebrating a recovery or planning a funeral. I am used to being the calmest person in the room when all hell breaks loose and the monitors start screaming. But right now, gripping the leather steering wheel of a rental sedan on Interstate 26, heading south toward Charleston, my hands were shaking uncontrollably. It wasn't the caffeine. It wasn't the lack of sleep from a 20-hour shift I had just pulled before hopping on a plane at O'Hare. It was the destination. Home. Or rather, the house where I grew up. The physical structure where I learned that love was a currency, and I was perpetually bankrupt. The South Carolina humidity hit the windshield like a wet, heavy towel. Even with the air conditioning blasting at full power, I could feel the sticky, oppressive weight of the lowcountry seeping in through the vents. It smelled of pluff mud, salt water, and decaying marsh grass, a scent that used to comfort me when I was a child but now just triggered a low-level nausea in the pit of my stomach. Every mile marker I passed felt like I was driving backward in time, regressing from the respected Dr. Cole back into Addie, the invisible daughter. On the passenger seat beside me sat a small, velvet-wrapped box. Inside was a vintage pearl necklace. Genuine Akoya pearls, creamy white with a rose overtone, strung on silk with a 14-karat gold clasp. It had cost me $8,000. That was 2 months of rent for a normal person, or a fraction of a quarterly bonus for me. It was for my mother, Cynthia. Today was her 60th birthday. Why was I doing this? That was the question my best friend, Tasha, had asked me before I left Chicago. Tasha is the head nurse at my hospital, a woman with a spine of steel who has seen me at my absolute worst and my absolute best. She told me I was insane for going back. She stood in my living room, watching me pack, and told me that buying their affection with pearls was like throwing a prime rib steak into a den of hyenas and expecting them to learn table manners. I knew she was right. Intellectually, I knew she was 100% correct. But there is this stupid, broken part of the human brain that craves validation from the people who created you. It is a biological imperative that defies logic. I told myself I was going back to see if they had changed, to see if the death of my grandfather, Felix, 2 years ago had humbled them, to see if the financial struggles I knew they were hiding had made them more human, to see if my brother, Preston, had finally grown up and become a man instead of a parasite. Preston, just thinking his name, made my jaw clench so hard my teeth ached. My older brother by 4 years. The golden boy. The sun around which the entire Cole family orbit revolved. And then there was Brianna, my younger sister, the baby, the princess who could do no wrong. I was the middle child, the bridge they burned to get to each other. I merged onto the exit ramp, the tires humming a rhythmic drone against the asphalt. The landscape shifted from the generic highway concrete to the sprawling live oaks and Spanish moss of the historic district. This was where the old money lived, or at least, people who pretended to have old money. My father, Garrett Cole, was the king of pretenders. He was a man who would lease a luxury car he couldn't afford just to drive to the grocery store, while refusing to pay for fixing the leaking roof that was rotting the attic beams. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark circles under my eyes were hidden behind oversized designer sunglasses. My silk blouse was crisp and white, tucked into tailored trousers. I looked successful. I looked like I had made it. I wanted them to see that. I wanted them to look at Dr. Adrienne Cole and realize that the daughter they ignored was the only one who actually built something real. But beneath the silk and the expensive haircut, I felt like an imposter. I felt like the little girl waiting to be picked up from school. I turned onto the gravel driveway. The stones crunched loudly under the tires, announcing my arrival. The house loomed ahead. It was a large, colonial-style revival that looked impressive from the street, but as I got closer, the cracks in the facade became visible. The white paint was peeling near the gutters, revealing gray, weathered wood underneath. The lawn was overgrown, the weeds fighting a winning war against the St. Augustine grass. It was a house that was slowly dying, much like the family dynamics inside it. I took a deep breath, held it for 4 seconds, and exhaled for 4. A surgeon's breathing technique to lower the heart rate. I killed the engine and grabbed the velvet box. It was showtime. I stepped out of the car, the heat instantly wrapping around me like a damp blanket. There were about 10 other cars parked on the grass, a mix of neighbors' sedans, and, judging by the luxury brands of a few vehicles, potential investors my brother was trying to woo. Preston always had an angle. Every birthday, every funeral, every holiday was a networking event for his latest scam. I walked up the porch steps. The wood creaked ominously under my heels. I noticed a rotting plank near the doormat and sidestepped it instinctively. I remembered tripping on that same loose board 5 years ago. They still hadn't fixed it. The door swung open before I could knock. It was my mother, Cynthia. 60 years hadn't softened her. If anything, age had sharpened her features, making her look more avian, like a hawk scanning for prey. She was wearing a dress that was too tight and too young for her, a floral print that clashed with the faded wallpaper behind her. Her face was caked in makeup that tried desperately to hide the stressed lines around her mouth, lines carved by years of maintaining a lie. "Adrienne," she said. Not hello, not I missed you, not come in, just my name, spoken with a mixture of surprise and mild inconvenience, as if I were a package delivered to the wrong address. "Happy birthday, Mom," I said, forcing a smile that felt tight on my face. I held out the velvet box. She didn't hug me. She didn't even look me in the eye. She took the box immediately, her eyes lighting up with that greedy glint I knew so well. She popped it open right there in the doorway. "Oh," she breathed. "Pearls. Finally. I have been hinting at these for years." She pulled the necklace out, holding it up to the light. She didn't ask where I got them or how I was doing. She just scrutinized the luster. "They are a bit small, aren't they? But they will do." "They are Akoya, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "They are classic. They are the highest grade. Come in. Come in." She waved me inside, already losing interest in me now that she had the gift. "Don't just stand there letting the bugs in. The air conditioning is struggling as it is." The interior of the house was stifling. The air conditioning was either broken or set to 80 degrees to save money. The air smelled stale, a mix of old carpet, dust, and a cloying floral air freshener trying to cover up the scent of mildew. The living room was decorated with cheap balloons and streamers that looked like they came from a dollar store, a stark contrast to the pretension my parents usually insisted upon. My father, Garrett, was sitting in his recliner, a beer in hand. He looked older, heavier. His face was flushed red, likely from blood pressure. He wasn't managing an alcohol he was consuming too much of. He didn't stand up. "Hey, Dad," I said. He grunted, his eyes glued to the college football game on the massive television. "You made it. Move your car if the neighbors complain. We have important people here." And then, there they were, the stars of the show. Preston was standing by the punch bowl, wearing a navy suit that looked expensive from a distance but cheap up close. The fabric was shiny, polyester heavy. He was holding court with a bored-looking couple I didn't recognize. He saw me and his smile didn't reach his eyes. It was a predator's smile, all teeth and calculation. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," Preston announced, his voice booming across the room. "The doctor. Here to diagnose us all. Or just here to judge." "Hello, Preston," I said, keeping my distance. Brianna looked up from her phone. She was 22 now, lounging on the sofa like a bored cat. She was wearing an outfit that cost more than my first car, likely paid for by my parents' dwindling savings. "Hey, Addie," she said without looking at me. "Did you bring me anything?" "I brought Mom a gift." "It is her birthday," I replied. Brianna rolled her eyes and went back to scrolling. Typical. If it wasn't about her, she wasn't interested. I looked around the dining room table. It was set for dinner. Fine china, crystal glasses, silver cutlery that needed polishing. I counted the settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 7 people in the room, including the guests. "Where am I sitting?" I asked. Cynthia fluttered over, adjusting her new pearls in the hallway mirror. "Oh, we didn't know if you were actually coming, Adrienne. You know how busy you are with your work. We didn't want to ruin the aesthetic of the table." Just grab that folding chair from the closet and squeeze in next to Brianna. A folding chair. Of course. Decades pass, and I am still the afterthought. I walked to the hall closet, retrieved the cold metal chair, and wedged it into the corner of the table. I sat down, feeling the metal dig into my back. I was lower than everyone else. I was the intruder. I was the spectator in my own family. Preston raised his glass of cheap champagne. Everyone, listen up. I have a big announcement to make later tonight. Huge things are happening for the Cole family. Huge. We are on the verge of a breakthrough. My father clapped enthusiastically, putting his beer down. My mother beamed at Preston like he was the second coming of Christ. I just sat there, clutching my purse, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I knew Preston. He didn't invite me here for cake. He invited me because he needed something. He smelled money. Dinner was a spectacle of pretension. We were eating roast beef that was slightly overcooked and swimming in a thick, dark brown gravy. The guests, a couple named the Millers, were looking increasingly uncomfortable as Preston dominated the conversation with buzzwords about synergy, crypto assets, and disrupting the market. He spoke with the confidence of a man who had never faced a consequence in his life. I ate in silence, cutting my meat with surgical precision, dissecting the fibers. I was trying to make myself invisible, a skill I had perfected over 3 decades. So, Adrienne, Preston said suddenly, turning his attention to me. The room went quiet. Mom tells me you are making the big bucks now. Chief resident or something. Attending surgeon, I corrected quietly. And I do okay. Okay. Preston laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Come on. I know what you doctors make. 6 figures easy. Maybe 7. You are sitting on a gold mine while your family struggles. Which brings me to my point. He leaned forward, his elbows on the table. The Millers looked down at their plates. I am launching a new venture next week, Preston continued. A tech incubator. We are going to revolutionize the Charleston startup scene. I need $50,000 for the seed capital. I am willing to let you in on the ground floor. It is a favor, really. There it was. The ask. It took less than an hour. I wiped my mouth with my linen napkin, placing it gently on the table. No, Preston. The air sucked out of the room. My father finally looked away from the TV, which he had left on in the background. My mother stopped chewing. Excuse me? Preston said, his smile faltering. I said no. I repeated, keeping my voice steady, checking my pulse mentally. I am not investing in your schemes anymore. I am here for Mom's birthday, not for business. Schemes? Preston stood up. His face was turning a dangerous shade of red, a vein bulging in his neck. You think this is a scheme? I am trying to save this family. I am trying to build a legacy. You are 35, Preston, I said, my patience snapping like a dry twig. You have built 6 companies in 10 years, and they have all failed. You have drained Mom and Dad's retirement. I am not giving you $50,000 to waste on office furniture and business cards. Garrett, say something to her. Cynthia shrieked. She is ruining my party. She is selfish. Adrienne, be reasonable, my father grumbled, glaring at me. Help your brother out. He is family. Family helps family. I helped him out last time, I said. And the time before that. No more. Preston picked up the gravy boat. It was a heavy, ceramic antique that belonged to Grandma. It was filled to the brim with the steaming, oily brown liquid. The steam was rising from it. You think you are better than us, Preston snarled. He was shaking. You come in here with your fancy clothes and your rental car, looking down your nose at us. You ungrateful little bitch. Preston, sit down, I warned, my hand instinctively moving to protect my face. He didn't sit down. With a primal grunt, Preston lunged forward and swung the gravy boat. It happened in slow motion, and yet, all at once. The wave of brown liquid arched through the air. I turned my head, but I wasn't fast enough. The heat hit me first. It wasn't just warm, it was scalding. The gravy had been sitting on a warmer on the buffet table. It splashed over the left side of my face, into my hair, down my neck, and soaked into the front of my white silk blouse. The pain was instantaneous. A searing, biting heat that felt like 1,000 needles stabbing my skin. I gasped, the air knocked out of me. The greasy liquid dripped into my eye, blinding me on one side. I could feel the heat radiating through the silk, burning my chest. Oh my God, the female guest screamed. I sat there, frozen. I could feel the fat congealing on my skin, trapping the heat. My expensive blouse was ruined. My hair was matted with beef fat. Preston stood there, the empty boat in his hand, chest heaving. He looked wild. There, he panted. Maybe that will wash the attitude off you. I waited for my parents to scream at him. I waited for my father to stand up and defend his daughter. I waited for my mother to rush over with a towel. Instead, I heard a sound that chilled me more than the burn. My mother giggled. It started as a snicker and then turned into a full laugh. "Oh, look at her." Cynthia cackled. "She looks like a wet dog." My father smirked, taking a sip of his beer. "That will teach you some respect." I wiped the gravy from my good eye. I felt the skin on my neck blistering. The pain was throbbing, a deep, rhythmic pulse. But inside, something snapped. The last thread of hope, the last tiny desire for their love, severed cleanly. It was a surgical cut. Preston pointed a finger at the door. "Get out. You have 15 minutes to pack your things and leave my family's house. Don't ever come back." 15 minutes, I repeated. My voice was eerily calm. It was my surgeon's voice. The voice I used when I told a patient we had to amputate to save the life. I stood up. The folding chair clattered to the floor. I didn't wipe the gravy off. I let it drip. I wanted them to see it. 15 minutes, I said again. I reached down and picked up my leather tote bag from the floor. It was waterproof. Thank God. Fine, I said. 15 minutes. And after that, everything you think you own will be gone. To understand why I didn't just run out the door crying, you have to understand the 20 years of training I had endured in the Cole household. You have to understand that this moment was not an anomaly. It was the inevitable conclusion of a lifetime of abuse. Let's go back to when I was 10 years old. It was the year of the state science fair. I had spent 4 months growing crystal structures in our garage. I monitored humidity, temperature, and light. I kept a detailed logbook. I was obsessed. While other kids were playing tag, I was pretending to be Marie Curie. I wanted to understand how the world worked because the world inside my house made no sense. Preston, who was 14 at the time, was playing soccer. He wasn't good. He was actually quite terrible. He spent most of the game picking grass in the outfield or arguing with the referee. But to my parents, he was the next David Beckham. The day of the science fair was the same day as Preston's end-of-season pizza party. "We can't be in 2 places at once, Addie," my dad had said, not looking up from his newspaper. "Mrs. Gable's mom said she can give you a ride to the fair. We have to support Preston. It is the championship." It wasn't the championship. It was a participation party at a local pizza buffet. I won first place, not just for my grade, but for the entire elementary division. I stood on that stage holding a blue ribbon that was almost as big as my head. I looked out into the audience, searching for my mom's blonde hair or my dad's red cap. I scanned every face, hoping they had snuck in at the last minute. They weren't there. Mrs. Gable dropped me off at home afterward. The house was dark. They weren't back yet. I sat on the front porch for 2 hours, clutching my ribbon, my stomach growling. The rain started to drizzle, dampening my ribbon, but I didn't move. When they finally pulled into the driveway, Preston burst out of the car holding a tiny, plastic gold trophy. "I got most improved," he yelled. My parents were beaming. "Let's go get ice cream to celebrate." Mom cheered. "Our champion." I stood up, holding out my giant blue rosette. "I won first place," I said quietly. Mom glanced at it. "That is nice, honey. Put it in your room. Don't crinkle it." She turned back to Preston. "Come on, champ. Double scoop for you." They left again. They didn't even ask if I wanted to come. I walked into the house, went to the kitchen, and made myself a peanut butter sandwich. I ate it standing over the sink, watching the rain hit the window. That night, I threw the blue ribbon in the trash. That was the dynamic. Preston was the sun. I was space junk. And then Brianna was born when I was 12. If Preston was the prince, Brianna was the princess. I became the servant. "Addie, change Brianna's diaper." "Addie, help Preston with his homework. He is struggling." "Addie, we can't afford a new dress for your prom. We just bought Preston a car." I learned to be invisible. I learned that if I didn't ask for anything, I couldn't be rejected. I poured myself into books. I studied until my eyes burned. Grades were the only thing they couldn't take away from me. The only reason I survived my childhood without losing my mind was Grandpa Felix, my father's father. He lived in a small cottage on the edge of the property, back when the estate was twice the size it is now. Grandpa Felix was a pharmacist in his working days. He smelled like peppermint and old tobacco. He was the only person who looked at me and saw a person, not a utility. When I was 13, hiding from Preston and his bully friends who liked to shoot spitballs at me, Grandpa Felix found me crying behind the tool shed. Tears don't fix leaks, Addie, he told me, handing me a handkerchief. Action fixes leaks. He spent the next 3 months building me a treehouse in the massive oak tree by the creek. It wasn't just a plywood box. It was a sanctuary. It had glass windows he salvaged from a junkyard. It had a sturdy ladder. It had a lock on the door. This is yours, he said, handing me the key. Preston isn't allowed up here. Your parents aren't allowed up here. This is sovereign territory. I spent every afternoon there. I read biology textbooks. I dreamed of becoming a surgeon. I dreamed of cutting out the bad parts of things and making them whole again. But nothing good in my life was allowed to stay mine. One day, I came home from school to find the ladder to my treehouse pulled up. I could hear loud music and laughter coming from inside. Smoke was drifting out of the windows, the acrid smell of cheap weed. I screamed for them to come down. Preston's face popped out of the window. He was 16 now. Go away, nerd, he spat. This is the clubhouse now. I ran to my father. Dad, Preston is in my treehouse. He is smoking. Make him get out. Garrett didn't even look up from the TV. Don't be selfish, Addie. Preston needs a place to unwind with his friends. You are too old for treehouses anyway. But Grandpa built it for me. I cried. Grandpa is old and doesn't understand that boys need their space. Mom chimed in from the kitchen. Let your brother have this. Why do you always have to cause drama? They took my key. I went to Grandpa Felix that evening. I was shaking with rage. I expected him to march over there and kick Preston out. Instead, Grandpa Felix looked sad. He looked tired. He sat me down on his porch swing. I can build you another one, Addie, he said softly. I don't want another one, I said. I want them to stop stealing from me. He took my hand. His skin was like papery parchment. Listen to me, Adrienne. They can take the wood. They can take the space. But they cannot take your mind. You are going to be bigger than this town. You are going to be bigger than them. You have fire in you. They only have smoke. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bank book. A savings account. I have been putting money away for you, he whispered. For college. Just for you. Don't tell your father. Don't tell your mother. This is your ticket out. We hid the bank book under a loose floorboard in his cottage. It was our secret. It was my hope. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. The escape plan was ready. I had been accepted into Northwestern University's pre-med program. It was expensive, but I had a partial scholarship, and I had Grandpa Felix's secret fund. I had checked the balance a month prior, $40,000. It was enough to cover my first 2 years of housing and tuition gaps. I walked into the bank the day after graduation. I felt like an adult. I slammed my passbook on the counter. I would like to make a withdrawal, I told the teller confidently. For tuition. The teller, a nice lady named Mrs. Higgins who knew my family, looked at the computer screen. Then she frowned. She typed something else. She looked at me with pity. Honey, she said softly. This account was closed yesterday. My world stopped. The buzzing in my ears was deafening. What? That is impossible. My name is on it. It was a custodial account, Mrs. Higgins explained. Your father was the custodian until you turned 18. He came in yesterday and withdrew the full balance. A cashier's check for $40,000. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt cold. Ice cold. I drove home. I walked into the living room. My parents were sitting there with Preston. Preston was looking sulky. Where's my money? I asked. Garrett sighed, rubbing his temples. Addie, don't start. You stole $40,000 from me, I said. Grandpa saved that for my college. We didn't steal it, Cynthia said, defensive as always. We borrowed it. It was a family emergency. What emergency? I demanded. Preston got into a little trouble, Garrett mumbled. A little trouble? I laughed, a hysterical sound. What did he do? He crashed the Mustang, Cynthia said quickly. Into a police cruiser. He was tired. He was drunk. I screamed. He got a DUI and you used my college money to pay his bail and his lawyer and buy him a new car? He needed a good lawyer so it wouldn't ruin his record. Mom yelled back. He has a bright future. One mistake shouldn't ruin his life. You are smart, Addie. You can get more scholarships. You can take loans. Preston needs help. He needs jail, I said. That was the moment I left. I packed 2 bags. I didn't say goodbye. I drove to Chicago. I took out massive student loans. I worked 3 jobs. I ate ramen noodles for 4 years. I didn't come home for Thanksgiving. I didn't come home for Christmas. I cut them off. Before we get to the part where I reveal the documents that destroyed them, if you are enjoying this story of betrayal and upcoming revenge, please hit that like button on the video. It really helps. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. And I want to know, where are you listening from? Leave a comment with the name of your city. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Medical school and residency were a blur of exhaustion. Chicago is a cold city, but it felt warmer than my parents' house. I thrived on the pressure. The hospital became my home. I worked 100-hour weeks. I slept in call rooms on bunks that smelled like bleach. I learned to eat standing up in under 2 minutes. I became addicted to the meritocracy of medicine. In the operating room, it didn't matter who your dad was. It didn't matter if you were the golden child or the scapegoat. All that mattered was, could you stitch the artery before the patient bled out? If you were good, you were respected. And I was very, very good. Meanwhile, thanks to social media, I had a front row seat to the Preston show. While I was scraping pennies together to pay interest on my 6-figure student loans, Preston was posting photos from Cabo San Lucas. Living the dream. The caption read. I zoomed in on the photo. He was wearing a Rolex. I called Tasha over to look at my phone during a break. Look at this, I said. How does he afford this? He hasn't had a job in 2 years. Tasha squinted at the screen. He doesn't afford it, honey. Mommy and Daddy afford it. She was right. I later found out through a cousin that my parents had refinanced the house, the historic estate that had been in the family for 3 generations, to pay for Preston's business trips. They were cannibalizing their own future to feed his ego. Brianna wasn't much better. She dropped out of community college after 1 semester because it was too toxic and decided to become a full-time influencer. Except her only influence was spending my parents' money on hauls from Zara and Sephora. I watched all of this from a distance. I hardened my heart. I told myself I didn't care. I was building a career. I was saving lives. But deep down, it burned. It burned like acid. Why was he worth bankrupting themselves for, while I wasn't even worth a tuition check? Let's talk about Preston's businesses. First, there was the energy drink company, Thunder Juice. It was just rebranded sugar water he bought in bulk from China. We found cases of it rotting in the garage years later. Loss, $20,000. Then there was the crypto phase. He convinced my dad to cash out his 401k to buy some obscure coin that had a dog on it. The coin crashed 2 weeks later. Loss, $60,000. Then came the tech startup. He called it VitalsX. He claimed it was an app that would revolutionize healthcare. He actually called me during my 3rd year of residency. Hey, sis, he said, voice smooth as butter. Long time no talk. What do you want, Preston? I asked. I was scrubbing in for an appendectomy. I have an opportunity for you. VitalsX. It is going to be the next Uber for doctors. Since you are in the field, I am willing to let you on the advisory board. For a small buy-in of 10 grand. Preston, I said. Do you even have a developer? Do you have code? I have a vision, Adrienne. Details are for nerds. I am the idea guy. Don't ever call this number again, I said, and hung up. My parents, however, bought in. They believed him. They always believed him. Because believing him was easier than admitting they had raised a failure. If they admitted he was a fraud, they had to admit their parenting was a fraud. So they doubled down. Sunk cost fallacy in human form. 2 years ago, Grandpa Felix entered hospice care. Congestive heart failure. The irony was not lost on me. I was a heart surgeon, and I couldn't fix my own grandfather's heart. It was just too old. I flew back to Charleston every weekend for 6 weeks. I spent thousands on flights. My parents? They lived 20 minutes away, and they visited him twice. I sat by his bedside in the hospice facility. The room smelled of antiseptic and dying flowers. Grandpa was frail, his skin almost transparent. Where are they? He asked me one night, his voice a raspy whisper. They are busy, Grandpa, I lied. Preston has a meeting. Mom is not feeling well. He squeezed my hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. Liars, he wheezed. They are waiting for the vultures. He motioned for me to lean closer. Under the mattress, he whispered. The blue folder. Take it. Now. I reached under the thin hospital mattress and pulled out a blue folder. It was sealed with tape. Don't open it here, he said. Take it to Mr. Henderson, my lawyer. He knows what to do. Grandpa, what is this? Insurance, he smiled weakly. For you. And punishment. For them. He died 2 days later. At the funeral, Preston wore sunglasses indoors and spent the whole service texting. Mom cried loudly, a performance for the neighbors. Dad looked bored. After the coffin was lowered, Preston cornered me. So, did the old man leave a will? Did he mention the house? I don't know. Preston, I said. Well, he better have left me something, Preston sneered. I am the only grandson. I carry the name. I clutched my purse tight. The blue folder was inside. I flew back to Chicago that night and didn't open it for a week. I was too scared of what it might contain. A month after the funeral, I finally met with Mr. Henderson via a secure video call. He was an old-school Southern lawyer, bow tie and all. Miss Cole, he said gravely, your grandfather was a very observant man. We opened the digital files together. Grandpa Felix didn't have much cash left. Medical bills had eaten most of it. But he had information. He had kept a detailed diary of every time my parents asked him for money, every time they tried to guilt-trip him, and he had done a title search on the family estate. Your parents are broke, Adrienne, Mr. Henderson said bluntly. Technically, worse than broke. They are underwater. He showed me the documents. The house, which I thought was paid off decades ago, was mortgaged to the hilt. 3 refinances. And recently, a hard money loan. Do you know what a hard money loan is? Mr. Henderson asked. High interest. Short term. Predatory, I replied. Exactly. Your father took out a loan of $450,000 from a private lending group called Sharkfin Capital. Terrible name, by the way. He used the house as collateral. The interest rate is 12%, and it has a balloon payment due in 6 months. Why did they need $500,000? I asked, horrified. To pay off Preston's gambling debts, Mr. Henderson said. Apparently, your brother got involved with some online sports betting. He lost big. The bookies were threatening to break his legs. So, Mommy and Daddy mortgaged the house to save him. I stared at the screen. They had risked their home, their legacy, everything, to cover Preston's addiction. The loan is in default, Mr. Henderson continued. They haven't made a payment in 3 months. The lender is preparing to foreclose. I sat in my condo in Chicago looking at the skyline. I had money. I had saved aggressively. I had invested well. I had no kids, no husband, just a cat, and a very high salary. I could pay off their loan. I could write a check for $450,000 and save them. It would hurt my savings, but I could do it. But then I remembered the science fair. I remembered the treehouse. I remembered my stolen college fund. I remembered Preston's smirk at the funeral. Why should I save them? So they could burn my money too? I called Mr. Henderson back. I want to buy the debt, I said. Excuse me? The note. The distressed mortgage. I want to buy it from Sharkfin Capital. If they are about to foreclose, they might be willing to sell the debt for a discount to get cash now and avoid the legal hassle. Mr. Henderson smiled. A slow, shark-like smile. They absolutely would. But we can't do it in your name. If your parents know you own the debt, they will guilt you into forgiving it. Create an LLC, I said. Call it Justice Holdings. Blind trust. They never see my name. It took 2 weeks. I bought the note for 60 cents on the dollar. I paid roughly $270,000 to own my parents' $450,000 debt. I was now the bank. I own the house. I own them. For 3 months, I sat on the debt. I let the late notices pile up in their mailbox. They ignored them, of course. Denial is a powerful drug. Then came the invitation to Mom's 60th birthday. I talked to Tasha about it over wine. Don't go, Tasha said. Just foreclose on them from here. Send the sheriff. Don't put yourself in that room. I have to give them one last chance, I said. It is a test. A test? If I go there, and they are nice. If they show just 1 ounce of regret. If Preston apologizes. If Mom asks how I am. Then maybe I restructure the loan. Maybe I give them a payment plan. Maybe I don't destroy them. You know they are going to fail, Tasha said. Probably, I swirled my wine. But I need to know for sure. I need to look them in the eye. So I bought the pearls. I booked the flight. I packed the foreclosure documents in a folder at the bottom of my bag, just in case. And now here I was, sitting in a folding chair, gravy dripping down my face, my skin burning, listening to my mother laugh at my pain. The test was over. They failed. 15 minutes. Preston yelled again, feeling powerful. Tick-tock, Adrienne. I didn't rush. I picked up a linen napkin from the table and dabbed at my eye. The skin was tender, radiating heat. I knew I would blister. I compartmentalized the pain. Box it up. Put it away. Deal with it later. I reached into my waterproof tote bag. What are you doing? Brianna asked, looking up from her phone for the first time. Calling an Uber? No, I said calmly. I am calling time of death. I pulled out a thick stack of papers. I slammed them onto the mahogany table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The gravy boat rattled. What is that? Garrett asked, his eyes narrowing. This, I pointed to the first document, is why you should be very careful about who you insult. I opened the folder. The first document wasn't the foreclosure. It was the appetizer. Document A, I announced, my voice cutting through the tension. An official notification from the IRS regarding one Mr. Preston Cole. Preston's face went pale. What? How did you get that? Grandpa Felix kept records, Preston, and I hired a forensic accountant. Did you know, Mom, that Preston has been using your social security number to open credit cards? Cynthia gasped. No, he wouldn't. He did, I said. And he has been claiming you as an employee of his fake companies to launder money. You are facing a tax audit, Preston. And since you signed Mom's name, she is an accomplice to fraud. That is a lie. Preston screamed. She is bluffing. Here are the credit card statements. I tossed a packet of photos onto the table. OnlyFans, DraftKings, BetMGM, and a lot of charges at a strip club called the Velvet Room. Is that a business expense, Preston? The neighbors, the Millers, stood up. We should go, Mr. Miller muttered. They practically ran out the front door. You are ruining everything. Cynthia shrieked at me. Why are you doing this? I am not doing anything, Mom. I am just reading the news. But that is not the big one. I flipped to the next section. Document B, I said. The deed of trust. I held up the legal paper with the blue seal. Dad, I looked at Garrett. You took out a loan with Shark Fin Capital for $450,000. You haven't paid them in 4 months. Garrett slumped in his chair. He looked defeated. How do you know that? Because Shark Fin Capital sold the debt, I said, to a company called Justice Holdings LLC. So, Preston sneered. Some other shark owns us. Big deal. We will declare bankruptcy. You can't declare bankruptcy on this loan, Preston. It is secured by the house. And Justice Holdings isn't some faceless corporation. I paused. I let silence fill the room. I looked at each of them. The gravy was starting to dry and itch, but I felt nothing but cold, hard power. I am Justice Holdings, I whispered. The silence was absolute. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator. What? Cynthia breathed. I bought your debt, I said loud enough for the back of the room to hear. I own the mortgage on this house. I am your bank. And you are in default. Addie, Garrett started, his voice shaking. Honey, you wouldn't. I would, I said. I really would. In fact, look at Clause 7C. I pointed to a highlighted paragraph. The acceleration clause. It states that the lender can demand full repayment immediately if the property is damaged or if criminal activity occurs on the premises. I pointed to the gravy boat still in Preston's hand. I pointed to my burned face. Assault is a crime, Preston. Battery is a crime. I looked at my watch. You gave me 15 minutes to leave. I am giving you 0 minutes to pay me $450,000. Can you write a check, Dad? Garrett put his head in his hands. No. Then I am initiating foreclosure. Effective immediately. This is my house now. Preston roared. It was the sound of a trapped animal. He grabbed a steak knife from the table. I will kill you. He screamed. You witch. You stole my house. He lunged across the table. But he didn't make it. The front door kicked open. 2 uniformed police officers rushed in. Drop the knife. Drop it now. Tasha walked in behind them. She held up her phone. I got it all on video, officers. The assault with the boiling liquid. And the threat with the knife. Preston froze. He dropped the knife. It clattered against the fine china. On your knees. The officer yelled. I watched as they handcuffed Preston. He was crying now. Snot running down his face. Mom. Mom, help me. Don't let them take me. Cynthia was sobbing, clutching her pearls, my pearls. He is a good boy. It was an accident. It wasn't an accident, ma'am, the officer said, looking at my face. Do you need a paramedic, miss? I am a doctor, I said calmly. I can treat myself. Just get him out of here. They dragged Preston out. He screamed obscenities at me until the squad car door slammed shut. I stood up. I looked at my parents. You have 30 days to vacate, I said. If you damage one wall, one floorboard, I will sue you for the rest of your pension. Get out. 2 months later, I stood in the living room of the estate. It was empty. The furniture was gone. The smell of stale beer and desperation was gone. I had hired a cleaning crew to scrub it top to bottom. My parents had moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Section 8 housing. They tried to fight the foreclosure, but the paperwork was ironclad. Preston was in county jail, awaiting trial for aggravated assault. Because of his prior record, which I made sure the prosecutor knew about, no bail was granted. I walked to the kitchen. I stood where I had sat in that folding chair. The stain of the gravy was gone from the floor, scrubbed away by professionals. I felt light. I didn't feel happy, exactly. Revenge isn't happiness. It is just balance. The scales had been tipped against me for 30 years. I just leveled them. Preston eventually took a plea deal. 2 years in prison. When he gets out, he will be a convicted felon. No more fake CEO gigs. No more loans. He will have to work for a living. Maybe he will learn humility. Probably not. Brianna had a reality check. With the bank of mom and dad closed, she couldn't afford her apartment. She had to move in with 3 roommates and got a job as a hostess at a diner. I heard through the grapevine she actually shows up on time. Maybe there is hope for her. My parents still call me. I blocked their numbers, but they leave voicemails from payphones or friends' phones. Sometimes they scream. Sometimes they beg. We are your family. My mom sobbed in the last one. How can you do this to us? I deleted it without listening to the end. Oh, and the pearls. Before I left the house that night, while the police were taking Preston away, I walked up to my mother. She was sitting on the sofa, weeping. I reached out and unclasped the necklace from her neck. Hey, she protested weakly. You gave that to me. I gave it to my mother, I said coldly. You are not a mother. You are just an incubator. I took the pearls back. I pawned them at a shop in Chicago. I got $4,000 for them. I took that money, added another $10,000 of my own, and started a small scholarship fund at my old high school. The Felix Cole Science Scholarship. For girls who need a way out. I am sitting on my balcony in Chicago now. The wind is cold, but I like it. It feels clean. I have a scar on the left side of my neck. A patch of skin that is slightly discolored, slightly rougher than the rest. I touch it every morning when I wake up. Some people tell me I was too harsh. That family is family, no matter what. That I should have forgiven them. That taking their home was the act of a monster. But then I remember the little girl waiting on the porch with a blue ribbon. I remember the treehouse filled with smoke. I remember the stolen college fund. And I remember the laughter when I was burning. I didn't evict my family. I evicted a cancer that was eating me alive. So, I have to ask you guys, am I the asshole for executing the foreclosure on my own parents and sending my brother to jail, or did they simply reap exactly what they sowed? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story of scorched earth justice, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe and check your credit reports.